Hello there, welcome to my world of stuff. My name is, and it's time for one of those videos I do every few weeks of my latest pickups, my collectibles, my books, comics, DVDs, Blu-rays, things I bought in the last few weeks. I like to do a little run through the things I bought so you can see what I've been spending my money on. Now, I do tend to buy a lot of odds and sods. I'm not just a Blu-ray collector. I'm not just a comic collector. I collect collectibles, basically, so it may well be that stuff in this video doesn't particularly interest you, but have a look, see I just want to show off the things I bought, really, because it's fun, and people do like to see some of these things. Quite a lot of stuff, because it's been about a month, I think, since I did the last video, so there's quite a few bits and pieces to get through, so I'll just run through them fairly quickly, because I don't want to do an hour-long video. Yeah, quite a lot of things, quite a lot of Blu-rays, a couple of books, comic-y things, and some other collectibles. I'll start off with the other collectibles. Now, I went down recently to a comic shop, which I didn't know existed, in Port Talbot in South Wales. It's about 30, 40 miles away from me. I was going down to visit a friend of mine, more on that later, and I discovered there was a local comic shop, and they were selling in the window one of those remote control Daleks that came out a few years ago. Long story short, I wanted to reserve that Dalek and keep it, but by the time I got there, it had gone. But that's beside the point, because they had some other things in the shop, a lovely little shop. Can't think of the name of it now, but if you're in Port Talbot, seek it out. It's just off the main sort of high street as you head towards Tesco. But they did have in there three things which I've seen. A friend of mine's got these, and I sort of, I want them, but you can't get them now. They're no longer available, but they were available in this particular comic shop, and they are these lovely little busts of the classic Universal monsters, if you like, from the 30s. There were three of them in the set that I picked up. We've got the Frankenstein monster, the classic sort of Boris Karloff look. We've got Bela Lugosi as Dracula. You may have seen the retro movie review I did of Dracula a couple of months ago. It's a lovely sort of likeness of Bela Lugosi as Dracula, and Lon Chaney's Wolfman, all on plinths with names of the films when they were made. Lovely, really, really good condition. And I was only originally going to pick up the Dracula and Frankenstein's monster one, but as the guy in the shop said to me, it'd be a shame to split the three of them up, which talked me into it, and I picked them up. They were incredibly pricey. They were 25 quid each, basically. So I paid 75 for the three. Bought a few other bits and pieces in the shop and had a bit of a discount because of the mix-up with the Dalek. So I was quite pleased to get these because they are very collectible. You can't get them now, and they look very nice on my in my cinema room, on my bureau. So I'm very pleased to have got those. I'm really pleased with those. Other things that I've got then, I'll do a couple of books first. I've even got a CD for this particular episode. Remember them? Okay, books. First of all, this is called The Long Game. This is by Paul Hayes. This is published by 10 Acre Films Books. It came out last weekend. I read it in a couple of sittings. It's 300 and something on pages. This is going to be of interest to Doctor Who fans, particularly fans of Doctor Who are interested in what happened when the show was off the air after the Paul McGann TV movie in 1996, and the, quite frankly, numerous efforts the BBC made to get a film made, to get a new TV series made, who was involved, who pitched for it, what worked, what didn't work, the various different Doctor Who projects which did happen, like animated cartoons, web cartoons. There was actually a lot of Doctor Who around when Doctor Who was off the air, but this book tells the story of how Doctor Who came back to the screen, but it stops at the point where the Russell T Davies series in 2005 went into production. It just takes us all through the mechanics at the BBC and the hoops they jumped through to get this show made, and how when this show finished in 1989, BBC were a bit sort of ambivalent about it, but were interested if anybody came along with an interesting pitch to bring it back. And then how eventually, of course, as we know, in the early 2000s, people were in positions of power at the BBC who actually liked Doctor Who and wanted to bring it back and worked to bring it back. And it's a story of how all that happened. It's fascinating. There's 30 new interviews with people who were involved at the time in bringing the show back, or who were involved in the process of the show being in limbo and then coming back. Absolutely captivating. It's brilliantly written. If you want to know more about it, I've reviewed it for Starburst magazine. So if you check out this address, www.starburstmagazine.com, that will lead you to the review. You can read a bit more about this terrific book called The Long Game, which has just come out. This arrived yesterday. Quite a fan of Sherlock Holmes, not necessarily the Benedict Cumberbatch, Stephen Moffat one, because that one a bit wobbly. But I do like classic Sherlock Holmes, and I do mean classic Sherlock Holmes. And there's a lot of authors now who are writing Sherlock Holmes stories because the character is, I think, out of copyright, so people can write Sherlock Holmes stories. I haven't read a lot of them, but the ones I have read are written by this chap called James Lovegrove. I read 2 books of his so far, which have come out the last couple of years. They always come out about November in time for Christmas. There was last year's Christmas Demon came out 2 years ago, and last year was The Curse of the Stapletons, which was a direct sequel to The Hound of the Baskervilles. And James Lovegrove writes Sherlock Holmes in the style of Conan Doyle. They're very much written in that sort of Victorian era feel, and that's what I like about them. He really captures that spirit of how those stories were originally written. This is his latest one, The Three Winter's Terrors. This has just come out. This is 3 short incidents, if you like, not short stories, but there's 3 incidents which are, as usual, written up and reported by Dr. Watson after the event, and they're incidents which are sort of slightly supernatural, but there is a connection between them apparently. I haven't started reading this yet, but this is a really nice book for this time of year in those autumnal evenings, sitting in front of a roaring fire, if you have such a thing, or just putting your feet up with a nice cup of tea, cup of coffee, and just reading a nice atmospheric old-fashioned thriller. Excellent, highly recommended. Published by Titan Books. It's called The Three Winter Terrors by James Lovegrove, and I'm sure it's going to be a great read. I will now do, let's do the Blu-rays and DVDs, because there's quite a few in this particular edition, and I'll run through the stories of some. And I picked this one up off eBay for about £10, I think. Now, I'm not a huge fan of the Stephen Moffat era of Doctor Who. I think Matt Smith and Peter Capaldi are great actors, but very, very often let down by the material. So I haven't really collected, apart from season 5, Matt Smith's first season, but I haven't really collected the rest of the episodes on physical media. But this was a tenner. This was Peter Capaldi's first season on Blu-ray. This is the one where the character was, the Am I a Good Man arc and storyline. And this isn't a bad run of episodes. Certainly the beginning, when there's a conscious effort to slightly reinvent Doctor Who. I think the idea was to cast an older actor, because I think at the time they felt that would connect with the audience. So we all know now that it didn't really work. Peter Capaldi is great. He's a superb actor. He does his best. The material isn't always great. And at the time, unfortunately, after David Tennant and Matt Smith, the audience weren't really interested in a Doctor who was in his late 50s. That is no reflection on Peter Capaldi. It's just that he was the right actor at the wrong time, unfortunately. And of course, as we know, in later seasons, they panicked a little bit and tried to make him appeal more to youths with not particularly respectable or successful consequences. But this series isn't bad. There's some fairly decent episodes in here. Into the Dalek is a really good Dalek episode. Robot of Show is quite fun. It's not modern Doctor Who at its best, but I thought for a tenner, it was a set that's, I thought I might as well get it. Right, I have some others here. Now, the story about Port Talbot that I was telling you, I popped into the CEX in Port Talbot. I had a couple of vouchers. I had a few discs that I wanted to trade in. When I traded them in, I had vouchers up to about 30 quid. So I went on the shelves and I thought, I'll pick up a few bits and pieces in here. It was the first day working there for the guy who was serving me, and he was quite slow. He didn't really know what he was doing. That happens in the first day in work. And it took him an age to process my orders. And then I picked the things that I wanted, and it took him an age to process them. It was only when I got home later, because I was going out for a meal with my friends, so I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't check the discs when I came out of the shop, which I normally do. When I got home in the evening, I opened the discs or the boxes to find the discs weren't there. He'd forgotten to select the discs and put them in the boxes. That was 2 weeks ago. It's taken me until today, actually, to sort it out. I managed to get hold of that particular branch of CEX. They were very helpful, and they sent the discs to my local branch, and I've picked them up there today. So I've now got these discs, which I bought, and I've got them in their boxes, and I finally own them after some delay. So the ones I picked up, I've still got the labels on, so I'll take those off in a moment. This is the 4K and Blu-ray edition of one of my favourite films from Ron Howard. This is the story of Apollo 13, which, as you'll know, is the aborted moon landing from, I'm thinking, 1973, when the Apollo 13 project went horribly wrong, and there was sort of an urgent mission to get them back to Earth. It's a great film. I've seen it several times, but it'll be nice to see it again on 4K with the improved picture quality on the cinema screen. So yeah, I picked up that. As I finally picked that up today when it was delivered to my local store. So luckily, I was just concerned that I'd have to take another trip. Although I go down to Port Talbot quite regularly to see my friend, I wasn't planning to go for a little while. So I was quite pleased that, excuse me, just getting the labels. I can't stand it. I can't understand people who buy discs and leave the price tags and the labels on for ages. I just left them on because I've only picked them up today. The others that I picked up, Free Guy. This is the recent film starring Ryan Reynolds, that sort of guy who realises that he's a character in I think, what do they call them, open role-playing game or something. He discovers he's an avatar in a game, basically. This is good fun. I enjoyed this at the cinema. It was 12 quid. It's not long come out on Blu-ray, so I'm quite pleased to get it at a decent price. There's the disc. There's nothing special in there. It's just a normal blue Blu-ray disc. But yeah, I was quite pleased to get that because it is it's a good fun film, and it's one of those films you can just bung on. And it's one of those films, I think, that there's so many in-jokes and gags and references. I think every time you see it, you probably pick up something new from it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to taking a look at that. I only saw it about 4 months ago when it was in the cinema, but it will be nice to take a look again. Sorry, I'm busily taking off the label because these labels do annoy me. So that was the second one, which I picked up at CEX, but wasn't able to get because the guy didn't put them in the boxes for me. And it happens. I wasn't particularly... I was more angry at myself really for not checking when I got at the shop. But as I say, my friend and his girlfriend and I were going out for a meal, and I just didn't really think to check. I just assumed they were there. The third one I picked up is another classic from the late 90s, I believe it is. It's Jim Carrey in The Truman Show. We all know this. This is the story about the guy who realizes that he's being observed on a 24-hour TV reality show. This was actually quite prescient of things like Big Brother and all those shows we get these days, Love Island, all these things where people are being watched by people at home. But this guy doesn't know that this is happening. So this was sort of ahead of its time, really, in the sort of dealing with those sorts of, oh, sorry, I'm getting obsessed with getting these labels off. We're dealing with those sorts of situations of that reality show, and I hate that sort of thing. I can't be bothered. I can't invest in that sort of stuff. But this is a cracking film, and it's nice to have it on good old-fashioned Blu-ray. So when I went to my local CEX today to pick up those discs, I had a look on the shelves, and I picked up a few other bits and pieces. This is one of my favourite films from M. Night Shyamalan. He's often gets a lot of bad press because he has done some seriously bad films. This is one of his earlier films before his reputation was shot a bit by things like Lady in the Water and The Last Airbender. This is Signs with Mel Gibson before he became a bit of a pariah. This is a really interesting take on the alien invasion story. And I think it's quite a low-key sort of story. It's about a family who discover a crop circle out on the grounds of their house, outside their house, and it leads to the fact that there is an invasion going on. And the invasion all subtly happens in the background. It's quite a moody, sort of atmospheric. Oh yeah, I love it when the labels come off in one pull. I really enjoyed this. I haven't seen it for years, so it is one that I will look at again quite soon, I think, because it's an underrated Shyamalan title. So if you've not seen it, it's worth tracking it down if you can. I don't know if it's on any streaming services. It probably is, but I'm a physical media boy, really. I also picked up for £1. This is a sort of an underrated film. I saw this in the cinema. Never really felt inclined to watch it again, but for £1, I thought this is Transcendence. This stars Keanu Reeves. Stars Johnny Depp. Stars Johnny Depp, Morgan Freeman, Rebecca Hall, Cillian Murphy, and this is directed by Wally Pfister, who is the cinematographer normally for Christopher Nolan's films. This is his directorial debut. And sadly, I don't think he's done anything since because he wasn't a big hit. But this is an interesting science fiction film where Johnny Depp plays this guy who decides to upload his consciousness into a computer and sort of what happens to him and his sense of morality when that's happened. I saw it in the cinema and quite enjoyed it. As I say, it wasn't a big hit film and it's not incredibly well regarded, but I think if you've never seen it, it's quite interesting. It's a fairly long film. I seem to recall a couple of hours, but it's because it's directed by a cinematographer. The visuals are fantastic, and he makes a really good use of the screen, and it just looks beautiful. And I think it's quite a good film, so I am quite looking forward to seeing that one again. I also picked up from there for a tenner. This is one of the films which I have a poster for up on the wall. You might remember seeing the poster when I did my cinema tour. Classic 1960, I'm thinking 66, 67. Science fiction film, fantastic Voyage. This stars Raquel Welch, Stephen Boyd, Evan O'Brien and Donald Pleasance. This is the story of a bunch of scientists and medics who have to travel into the body of an alien scientist. The scientist is ill and trying to save his life. Again, science fiction classic, not a favourite science fiction film of mine, but one that I really enjoy when I've seen it. I've seen it a couple of times. I haven't seen it for years. And the special effects were sort of, revolutionary for their time with this sort of miniaturization and the giant size props. Of course, this is all before CGI, when this sort of stuff was genuinely miraculous, not these days when anything is possible. So this is a good quality Blu-ray. It looks as if it's been well looked after. The artwork is just the title and an image of the I don't think you call them astronauts. The characters in their survival suits as they travel inside this guy's body. If you've never seen it, yes, again, I don't know if it's on a stream or you may have to pick it up on physical, but there we are, labels off. Really good classic science fiction film. Final one is one I picked up today, quite surprised at. I just popped into my local Asda to check out what was there. Didn't have a lot of physical media. The shelves were bare in lots of places. So I'm hoping they're not winding things down completely, because if you go to your local Asda, there's not a lot there these days. Just the sort of main titles, but nothing particularly sort of, just a very mild selection these days. And I picked up this. This is Cruella. Now, this only came out a few weeks ago, and this is the Blu-ray that was there for £9. I think there was two for £12. There was only one on the shelf, so obviously people have been snapping them up. But this is a real bargain, because as I say, it came out about a month ago. It's no slipcover, unfortunately, but that's not a deal breaker for me. This is, I'm not a Disney fan, but everything's Disney these days. But this is, of course, the sort of prequel to 101 Dalmatians, and purports to tell how Cruella de Vil became Cruella. It stars Emma Stone. It's a really good film. I watched this on Disney Plus a few months ago. Really good film. Really, really a good fun spectacle. So I was quite pleased to pick this up for £9 when, as I said, it's only been out for a few weeks. I would check it out if its packaging is a bit fiddly. So that's all the blues that I bought over the past few weeks. CD. I bought a CD. Remember CDs? Remember when you had to buy your music on discs? The only group that keeps me interested in modern music these days, Coldplay. I've got all their albums, and I think they're great. I could talk for hours about why I love Coldplay, and they are very Marmite. People find them dull as ditchwater. I just find them uplifting. I think then the single Higher Power came out earlier this year. It just came out as we were edging out of pandemic, and it just seems so uplifting and positive and forward thinking. And that's what this album is all about. It's called Music of the Spheres. It includes that song Higher Power. It includes the current single My Universe, which is still in the top 10, duet with the Korean boy band BTS. It hasn't been very well reviewed, which I think is a shame, because it's quite it's an uplifting sort of album with a sort of concept of alien intelligence with music. So it's a bit sort of prog rocky, I suppose, in a way, the concept. But the songs are really good. I mean, there's only about 8 actual songs. There's a few instrumentals, but Humankind is a good, powerful sort of rocky, upbeat song. So is People of the Pride. Then there's a track called Beautiful, Let Somebody Go, and there's a long sort of piece at the end called Coloratura. It's a good album. It's a sort of a mix of pop and something sort of ethereal and slightly different. I'm just a big fan of Coldplay, and I had to have that on CD, and that's the CD I bought this month. We have now lots of comic-y stuff, so if you're not interested in comics, you might want to turn off at this point. But I would like you to stay for a little while if you could. I've gone through that phase, as I've said before, of buying lots of old comics and things off eBay as a therapeutic thing, because it's sort of, there's something therapeutic about buying things on eBay anyway, waiting for them to come in the post. And I've been buying things that I remember having in my youth. And the things which I have bought are things which are things I found quite cheaply, because the way people list things on eBay sometimes, people can miss things, and I've just been lucky to pick up things fairly cheaply. The first couple of things are a couple of comics and an annual, which were all from the same title. Back in the 60s, because I'm sure most of you won't remember this, there was a series on TV called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It was created by a chap called Irwin Allen, who was known as the Master of Disaster, because he did films like The Poseidon Adventure and The Towering Inferno in the 70s. But in the 60s, he created some great, good old-fashioned adventure science fiction series on television. Lost in Space, the original Lost in Space, Time Tunnel, and my personal favourite, Land of the Giants. But he also did this series called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, which was sort of a TV spin-off from a film which came out in the early 60s. And this ran for 4 seasons. And he started off in black and white as sort of an espionage series with this super sub called the Seaview. And as the series wore on, it went into colour, and it just became more outlandish with aliens and monsters and all sorts of crazy stuff. But there was a comic series which ran for quite some time with a comic company called Gold Key. You hear a lot about that company in the next 10 minutes or so. And they did this spin-off comic series. And I picked up 2 editions of the comic. This one and that one. And I think they both come from about 68. Yeah, I think it's 68. Let's have a look. This is number 3. Ooh. Well, the series is copyright 65, and it's hard to tell when the comics come. So probably around the same time. So these are quite, these are just really nice, old school sort of comics with stories based on the series. With actually, I read one of them. This one, which is called The Jonah Cruise of the Seaview, where Admiral Nelson, who's the commander of the vessel, is taken over by the spirit of a pirate captain who died years ago. And that's the sort of thing they did in the TV series. But it's just nice, good old-fashioned nostalgia. And I'm sure I read some of these comics back in the 60s. And like I say, Nostalgia Fest, I've just been lucky enough to track a couple of these down. So there's that one. And that one, which I haven't opened or even looked at yet. But yeah, it's just a good old-fashioned adventure series, which I used to watch back in the 60s. And on that tip, I also picked up from eBay quite cheaply one of the annuals of Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. It's a bit gnarly at the top, but it didn't cost very much. And again, it's, if you look at annuals, they're the little slim things without much content. They cost about £8. And this was 10 and 6 in old money. And it's full of comic strips and text stories. If you've seen the old Doctor Who annuals, it's a similar sort of format in terms of the lettering. But they used to do, the World Distributors used to do these fantastic annuals that were based on great old TV series. And, I remember the Christmases going to the bookshops and seeing all these annuals based on favourite TV series. You had Doctor Who and all these great shows, the Jerry Hansen shows, these really big, chunky, good value annuals. And it's just quite nice to track some of them down now and again, which is what I've been doing. More comic-y stuff then, and I'll try and fly through these because they might not be much interest. Again, from the 60s, there was, again, Gold Key comics. There's a character called Magnus, a robot fighter, who's this sort of heroic character in a future America, which is dominated by these sort of spindly little robot things. And I just remember reading some of these, and he's just used to fight these robots and have these wild science fiction adventures. I think it was rebooted in the 80s and 90s in one of these more modern series, but this is the old comics which I used to read back in the day, and I picked up a few of these for not very much money, really. 4 of them, which I picked up on eBay. I read one of them, and they're just good old-fashioned naive science fiction stories with robots and heroes punching robots, and they're just good fun. It's Magnus Robot Fighter. These I'll do very quickly. Again, I just picked these up in a batch again on eBay because they were quite cheap. If you remember, the old Western series was on TV called Bonanza. My brother's quite a big fan of this. Again, Gold Key published a comic on it for years. I picked up 3 of these for a couple of quid. And they're just nice sort of vintage comic books, which the style you don't get these days. It's just, and I'm not a big fan of Bonanza. I probably won't read these, but they were quite cheap. And it's just, good, solid, old-fashioned, uncomplicated, unpretentious artwork, unlike today's comics, which I just find they try too hard to be adult. And I think the comics need a certain naivety and childishness to them, and I just don't think that today's comics crowd think that way, which is why I have a cut-off point with comics. I look at classic Golden Age, Silver Age comics, but modern stuff is like a meh for me. Another one, similarly, it's Gold Key Comics, not in great condition. There was a TV series called The Wild Wild West, which was a sort of a spoofy spy western thing. It's sort of like a Wild West version of The Man from U.N.C.L.E., if you like, with this sort of spy, Jim West and his henchman Artemis. And they had these sort of Wild West adventures with extraordinary villains and gadgets and things. I don't think it was shown widely in the UK. I know it's been shown on the digital satellite channels. Again, my brother's quite a big fan. And I picked this up because it was quite cheap. I say it's not in great condition, but I just like these old 60s comics. I like the colour and the brashness of them. They're not ashamed to just be what they are. And it's just good old-fashioned fun. And as I'm getting older, I like a lot of that sort of stuff. It just appeals to me a lot. So that's the Wild Wild West. We're nearly there. These arrived today. Again, they're Gold Key Comics. And again, I got them for a few quid on eBay. First of all, I will show you this one because you will know Tarzan of the Apes. This is a comic based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' legendary character. This dates back from October 1965. It's just amazing that this comic is 50-something years old, 56 years old, and it's in good condition. Again, good, solid, unpretentious art, good, solid adventure stories. And, I think those of us of a certain age do have fond memories of Tarzan, whether it's the old films or the TV series. And that's just, another nice little old comic that I will probably not read. But, sometimes I see these things on eBay and I just go, yeah, and I've got them and then I realise I'm not going to do much with them. Then there's others, a series called Turok, Son of Stone, which is another sort of jungle adventure type thing. Korak, Son of Tarzan, apparently an Edgar Rice Burroughs thing, very similar to Tarzan. And then Mighty Samson. Samson fights a grim battle for survival in the forbidding wastelands of the Arctic. Again, just fun. Just great fun. The art, I think, is really good. If you look at the art on the cover, they're really nice painted covers. This dates back to December 1966. Yeah, it's just nostalgia. Just nostalgia for more innocent times. I think we all have a different types of nostalgia. If you're in the 80s, you're probably nostalgic for Transformers and that sort of stuff. But if you're of my age, you go back to the 60s and you think of old comics like this and old TV series, and that's the sort of stuff I've been gravitating towards, certainly since the pandemic came around. It's a sort of a safety thing, I suppose. A few other bits and pieces of comic stuff. I won't keep you much longer. As I think I mentioned in a previous one, with the Eternals is coming out, the new Marvel film, on Friday. I'll be seeing it Friday morning. You're doing a review for you. Should be up Friday night. It's not getting great reviews, so I'm a little bit concerned. But I have been reading the old original Marvel comics from Jack Kirby, and I think I probably showed you Volume 1, which I picked up last month. I've picked up Volume 2 as well. This completes the set of the original run from 1976. It only lasted 19 issues, so I've read issues 1 to 11. It's barking mad. It's completely nuts. And this, I think, is issues 12 to 19 and the one annual which came out. So that's the sort of the full original Eternals story. I don't expect the film to be anything like this, although I think some of the characters are there, but not in the way they are published here. But I just love Jack Kirby's artwork. I mean, it's just proper artwork and proper mad storytelling. And on that tip, before I bought that, I also picked up off eBay issue 16 of Jack Kirby's. So that's reprinted in here, but this is the actual comic, the British edition of the comics. It's got the 12p thing at the top. I picked up that, which I think is got the Hulk in it. See what you call. Also, speaking of the Hulk, there was a rumor last week before, that the Marvel, the MCU, will be doing a film based on a well-known Hulk comic strand called Planet Hulk. We don't know if that's true. It's been rumoured, but of course, that could be a long way ahead. And I understood that it was one of the classic Hulk stories from the period after my time. Apparently, I think it was Planet Hulk, then World War Hulk. I think the story is that the Hulk is banished from Earth because of the damage and destruction he causes, and he becomes like a gladiator on another planet. Then that planet is destroyed, and he goes back to Earth and causes chaos. Me being highly susceptible, I thought, I'm going to get them. So I picked up Planet Hulk. This is a big, chunky hardback edition. Got it from Amazon. It's a second-hand one, so it's a bit gnarly at the bottom, but it's, you know, it's okay. Again, this is the sort of art that doesn't really pull me in, but I'll have a look at it. I'll have a look at it. And then when I went to that comic shop I mentioned in Port Talbot, they happened to have World War Hulk, one of the Eagle Moss graphic novels collections. I think this was £8. And as that's the sequel to Planet Hulk, which at the time hadn't arrived but was coming, I thought I'd pick that up as well. So that's World War Hulk. Nearly there. These just arrived actually before I started filming. I ordered these. Again, I'm so susceptible. You know, these ads that come up on Facebook. And I think there is an algorithm. They know what you're interested in, what we've bought in the past. So they target things at you. And there was a company that was selling these wall plates or wall plaques based on superheroes. And I can't remember how much they were. I think it was 10 or 4 or something like that. So I picked up these very nice little metal plates which will go up on the wall somewhere here in the cinema room. One for the Invincible Iron Man. One for Avengers Age of Ultron. And one of the Amazing Spider-Man. The fourth one I got is Batman. This I might send to a friend of mine in North Wales who's a massive Batman fan. Because this is, you know, no prejudice against DC, but the others are Marvel, this is DC. And I might bung this off to my friend in North Wales and hopefully he will enjoy displaying that. I think that's it. Wow. So yeah, I bought a lot of stuff. As I said, you might not be interested in all of this, but hopefully there'll be some things that you'll be interested in seeing that I bought. I know the comics are a bit sort of eclectic and esoteric and a bit weird because they are quite obscure. But I do remember those Gold Key comics. They did a lot of these titles based on TV things. They did the Star Trek series, which ran for years and have been collected in various editions now. So I think it's just, I don't know, it's just, it is pure nostalgia. And that sort of nice warm feeling you get when you connect with things that you remember from when you were a kid. So anyway, that's the stuff I've bought, my latest bits and pieces. Hope you've enjoyed this video. Sorry it's gone on a little bit, but you might be able to fast forward to the things you're not interested in. Right, thank you for watching. More stuff coming soon. After doing this, I'm going to record my review of Last Night in Soho, which I saw last night. Whoa. And there'll be retro movie reviews coming. I've got a few lined up to do. And, of course, The Eternals, which is out on Friday. So thank you for watching. What you need to do now, if you enjoyed this or even thought it was vaguely entertaining, subscribe. That's the first thing. Subscribe. Let's get those numbers going up. Please subscribe, like, thumbs up, and leave a comment as well. If there's any of the stuff that you think is interesting or you've got, or you know, anything you want to say at all, leave a comment and we'll have a chat. Right, that's me done for now. Until I see you next time, you know what they say. Keep taking the stuff. Boom!